Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. It is Tuesday evening, and it is 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Not 8:30, not 8 o'clock. It is 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and it is 8 o'clock wherever in Texas that Imam Azhar resides. And we will actually be talking about that tonight because you voted in the polls and we have our topics. So before we get to that, I'm skipping a huge part of the show, which is where I say, Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome the hardest working Imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, it's 8:09 p.m. in this country known as Texas. We welcome all of you. Assalamu alaikum to our listeners. Peace and blessings be upon all of you. We are so happy to have you tonight. And again, as the time adjusts with our prayer times and our schedules, we're just happy that you all take the time out every Tuesday and you wait patiently. You engage with us to talk about the topics that you select. So, Carl, I apologize. I couldn't vote today. I was between so many things. And Carl, guess what? I was just accepted as a member on the advisory council, the diversity advisory council for the Plano Independent School District. So after being an advisor to the Florida Department of Education for 12 years, alhamdulillah, I am able to continue that passion and that goal here in the city I work in, Plano, as an advisor. I think I'm the first imam to be on that advisory board. There is another Muslim sister who is currently on it, and there was a Muslim sister who was on it last year. So alhamdulillah, just got back from that meeting 40 minutes ago, and I'm very happy about that. And I want to thank all our listeners who have posted on Facebooks their well wishes, and I thank you all for your prayers. Back to you, Carl.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, and it's I like that you are out in the community doing those kinds of things, and that you are in the schools helping to educate and bring the diversity that is needed, because a lot of times especially with the internet and everything else, we get into our silos and we don't branch out and tend to embrace each other, and we don't take the time to join each other, and we don't take the time to know each other. And so, alhamdulillah, that you are out in the community and you're engaging and you're doing this on our behalf. So, thank you for doing that. But, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking too much, and the honest truth is I was vamping because I was trying to pull up the comments so I could watch it on my phone. So, comments are being monitored. If you are watching on YouTube, if you are watching on Periscope, please leave your comments. Please share your thoughts. Please share your voice. And if you'd like to totally share your voice, right here at the bottom of the screen, 202-930-5175. You can call. You can leave us a voicemail. You can send us a text message. You can email us. The email's right there on the screen, rawislam@vennetwork.org. It is all there. But as you know, if you have listened to this show before, every Monday, except this week it was Tuesday, we post a poll where you, our listeners, you, our fans, you, our followers, can vote on what the topic is going to be for this night's conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, we ran that poll, although it was late, but we ran that poll and you voted and you spoke. Dark themes among Muslims, the tornadoes in Dallas, and of course, as you all know, my personal favorite, what's the deal with? And we had a two-way tie this week. Look at that. We have a two-way tie with tornadoes in Dallas and what's the deal with? And if you are following Imam Azhar, live, and it was just absolutely incredible. And I seem to have lost his video feed, so just give me 1 second here. No, not you, me. I lost your feed. I got it back. You're right there now. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I will turn it back over to the man of the hour who survived the tornado and bravely posted on Instagram, "Everybody go inside and hide," Imam Azhar.
Well, thank you so much, Carl, for that. And just to clarify, the tornado didn't strike us directly. What did transpire was, um, you see, when you come to Dallas and Texas, even though you're not an NFL fan or you don't follow a specific team, there's something about the Dallas Cowboys that rubs you some way or the other. And so I've had the opportunity to meet two or three Dallas Cowboy players during certain treatments that I was doing. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just follow the game. Personally, I don't I'm still not a big fan. I'm not a fan at all of NFL, and nor am I a fan of any team on the NFL, uh, in the NFL. But nevertheless, I was watching the game between the Eagles and the Cowboys, and it was around 8 o'clock when I saw on the upper left hand corner of the screen stating that there was a tornado warning for Collin County, and that's where I live. So I told my wife there is a tornado warning. She's like, "Yeah, right. Doesn't make sense because the weather was pretty good the whole day. We did expect in the forecast some rain in the evening, but there was nothing close to tornado warnings." Nevertheless, my daughter called at 8:45 or 8:50, telling us that she was done with her meeting here at the mosque, and so I left home to come here. And the rain was severe. Now, being from Florida for 16 years, driving in rain, it's something that we've become accustomed to. But the rain was really bad. I'm telling you, you could not even drive. It was like Niagara Falls was falling on your car. The winds were not too bad, but it was very powerful. I got past Frisco where I live, and I came more closer to Plano, and the rain started subsiding. 10 minutes after I got my daughter and I was making my way back home, that's when I heard the tornado siren, and I think Carl, you're referring to that. The sirens were blaring, and that told us that there's something different happening. At that time, when we looked up in the sky, all the clouds were sucked away. There was literally no clouds where we were, but the tornado struck maybe 10, 12 miles from here in Richardson. Matter of fact, the tornado landed close to, I think, Love Field Airport, which is the airport closer to downtown Dallas, where Southwest has their hub. And from there, it made a 17-mile trek. And it crossed through Richardson, it crossed over 635, which is a highway. Again, we were quite away from it, but just the mere scene of the clouds gathering on one side and the lightning show. It was, remember, we have Tampa Bay Lightning hockey team, and there's a reason because Tampa, Florida, and Southwest Florida is considered the lightning capital of the world. So we have more lightning storms than anywhere else in Florida, but this was on a whole different level. So we have the siren blaring, you have lightning storms, uh, incredible lightning storms in an eerie silence. And I was telling my daughter, we opened the sunroof and said, keep on looking around because it's dark, it's night. You don't want to drive into a tornado, which literally a lot of people did. Nevertheless, the tornado hit southeast of us, and we got confirmation of that less than an hour later that there was a touchdown of a three-category tornado. And then after that, we had a second band of storms come in at 12:20 at night, which finished around 2. So it was a very scary time, Carl. But that's my personal experience. Again, we were not touched by the tornado at all, but we did find out very soon thereafter that many people from the Muslim community in the city next to us, Richardson, were affected. Matter of fact, two imams' houses were destroyed. Two spiritual leaders of the community, their houses were destroyed, and two houses of a spiritual leader's in laws were affected. Many of the scholars of this great city, which we call out, give a shout out to, their students, their friends gathered up and they went down in the morning. We created chat groups to discuss strategy. Alhamdulillah, I've been able to work under FEMA and the Red Cross, both for the Orlando shooting and Hurricane Charlie. I also worked under the government, under the governor for Hurricane Charlie response team. So I put out certain pointers that you don't rush towards a scene that has been devastated, because ultimately you cause more problems than you do solution. When you cannot assess professionally what the situation is on the ground, you may put your life at risk, and then the uh, emergency management services have to run to you when they should be running to other people who are legitimately affected there. Nevertheless, people got there in the morning and started doing their work. I went in the afternoon and stayed for a few hours. We were emptying out the imams' houses and putting their luggage and their personal belongings into storage, getting them into secondary locations, temporary locations. But I promise you, Carl, the scene was devastation. It was a war zone. Trees were twisted, cars were thrown upside down, the imam's wife's car was thrown up against a tree. Um, Again, I've been through hurricanes, a few of them. I've seen the devastation through hurricanes, but this a tornado, wherever it went over, you could literally see the line of this tornado. There's houses to right and left that aren't that bad, like there maybe have a few shingles off here and there, a few windows broken, but where the tornado went, it literally made its mark clear. So, Carl, that was what I witnessed and experienced the night of and the morning thereafter. I still have some respiratory issues with all the fiberglass and the insulation. Unfortunately, I don't have the strong lungs as I used to at one time. I remember working in my father's basement and building it out. We put up insulation and stuff and drywall. Those were good days. But this was because all the roofs were blown out and there was insulation in the air. There was insulation entangled within tree limbs that were entangled within power lines. It was just a miserable situation. But the silver lining, Carl, is that how people came out and how people support each other. And they're still there right now helping, even though there's no power in many of these places. People were there the whole day and they're making sure that they can do their best for the people they know and the neighbors and people that they don't know. Carl?
So I will say that if anybody's interested, head over to Instagram and look for I Azhar, and you should see his beautiful face up there. And when you scroll through his feed, you can see the photos that he actually posted that evening. We do have one comment on YouTube from Sunshine. Welcome for joining us, Sunshine. Thank you. I hope we're not keeping you. I know we started later than normal, and I hope that doesn't affect your morning tomorrow. But she says, congratulations to you and to the school system for your appointment to the diversity board. So my only personal interactions with tornadoes was one that my grandmother used to tell me. My family comes from Ohio. That was when they came. That was where they settled. And my grandmother would always tell the story that there was a hurricane there that she experienced, and she said it was the weirdest thing because just as you said, she said she remembered standing at the kitchen window and watching it come across the field, and she panicked and she grabbed everybody and they started running, and then it wasn't there, and then they heard it behind the house. And when it was done, they went outside, and their house and their barn and their fields, everything was fine, but the house next to theirs was absolutely destroyed. And it's the tornado just picks a path and it goes, and unfortunately that path is unpredictable, and so you just never know what's going to happen. And I think that the couple of points that I'll make is one is, as somebody who has worked first responder emergency medicine, you're absolutely right. Please do not rush into an active scene saying I'm going to help somebody, because if you're not trained and you don't know what you're going to do and you don't know what you're doing, you become somebody that needs to be rescued, and you've just increased the workload. And it's actually more of a pain than it is a help. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying don't help your neighbors. I'm not saying, oh, I can lift this board and that guy can get out. But if it's an active scene and you rush in there, you're liable to become a victim, and now you've doubled the work of the first responders. So please don't do that. But the other thing I was thinking of is you were talking about working with the Red Cross and things like that. And I know this isn't a happy thought, but it is kind of a happy thought.
Hmm.
It was actually your work with the Pulse nightclub shooting that brought all of this into existence.
Yes, it did, Carl. And subhanAllah, you remember where we started this whole journey from. It was after the Pulse nightclub shooting. And even at that time, I came to the ground 12 hours later. I found out about it early in the morning when it actually broke, but I did not assume it to be something of that magnitude until I woke up much later and turned on the TV and, of course, got my phone calls. But I still remember the day that we did our podcast with you, um, in reference
Someplace
to
else.
someplace else, in reference to how the whole response went. And that stemmed into a discussion for this podcast that we are close to 100 episodes into. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. I just want to say a few things about that. We've been in hurricanes. We understand that a hurricane is coming. You have a timeline to kind of prepare yourself. Sometimes hurricane make those last minute turns, and that's exactly what Hurricane Charlie did on August 13, 2004. It was headed for Tampa. They evacuated the city, and it actually took a U-turn, not a U-turn, took a 90-degree turn and came straight into us. But nevertheless, you had some level of preparation. I talked to a lot of the neighbors and even the people affected, and what I got from them was it wasn't a howling sound as much as it was like a vacuum sound. It was literally sucking the air out of them, and they was sucking the air around them. A hurricane you can kind of track, a tornado you cannot track at all. And I just I reposted a picture on Facebook that was taken. It is amazing from a sky view. You could see the path that this tornado took. It literally left a line on the ground. And so it's so, so scary when you look at it from above, and below it's a whole different picture. Blocks away, things look fine. That area, sheer devastation. I want to tell you two stories, Carl. One is the story that the imams told me. The first imam, Ilji, sorry, he explained that they heard the storm getting worse and the place started shaking. So they all ran into the corridor and they threw a mattress on top of themselves. They said that the windows were shaking and the house was being sucked and the windows popped. But when the windows were popping, electricity had already gone, and so electricity was already out. So it's night, it's stormy, it's raining, it's dark, and you don't know where the tornado was. Literally, the tornado went over their house, and so the whole roof has damage. Their roof wasn't as bad as Imam Spendam's house. The roof is totally gone. The windows are gone. The neighbor's wall is gone. But what this Imam, the first one, said, I want to share this. He said that the air was sucked out of my ears and my mouth and my nose, like there was no air. And while they were down on the ground, he said his kids, he had two teenagers, and God bless their soul, Allah bless them, they started making dua, they started praying. And the prayer that they made gave him peace in his heart that if they're going to die right now, it's perfectly fine because the kids knew what to do at that time. He told me that the air was so strong that it sucked the socks off his son's feet. The socks were sucked off his son's feet. That's how bad it was. And glass seeped through the doorways and it hit his, I think, niece. Nevertheless, it passed over them. The tornado was moving at 35 miles per hour. It passed over them, and they, in that dark, realized that they were okay. Imam Spendam's house, kind of the same story. They said there was a sense of peace as it was going over, where you realize you have no control over anything. And that sense of peace was accepting the decree of God. If you're going to die, you're going to die, but you felt peace. You didn't feel hesitant. Now, when we were in Fort Myers, Florida, when Hurricane Charlie came over us, the eye literally went over us. And back in those days, camera phones were there, but I still that's like an addition to the hurricane, which isn't small. The eye is large. You're talking miles and miles. And what you could see above is clear blue heavenly sky and light, and all the birds were flying because they got stuck. They can't fly into the system, they'll die. They can't fly above, they don't have the ability to go that altitude, nor they could anchor down below because the wind is circulating. So they're moving with the eye of the hurricane in circular motion to reserve their energy. And I wish I can explain that picture. It's still in my head. It was crazy, serene, peaceful. And I walked out to the mosque door. I walked out to the parking lot, and I was like, this is heaven. Like you feel peace. But of course, the back end of a hurricane is the worst. The whiplash was indescribable, and that back end made more devastation in the city of Fort Myers than anything else. But nevertheless, these were the accounts of the people that I could collaborate with a hurricane, which was that sense of peace in the core of it. And that's what they both felt, even though their houses were ripped off their heads. Like the roof was ripped off in like above their head. The floors were soaked.
City when I was younger, and it was scary. The magnitude was not even that high. I could only imagine. May Allah protect us. And I think what I would say to that is, I've I haven't I personally,
Mhm.
and essentially is just I mean, you're standing there in the middle of the water spouts are actually very, very beautiful. And if you anybody can ever safely view one in person, I would encourage you to do so because it is really cool. But being in the Navy and living in Florida and even here in Virginia, I've had my experience of hurricanes, and